Hello and welcome to Eagles Power Hour, your official, unofficial Eastern Washington affiliate on the Big Sky Podcast Network. We are also an affiliate member of the Fans Nation Network YouTube channel. I am your host, Patrick Frakes, and today we have an awesome episode. Eastern Washington receivers coach Jeff McDaniels was kind enough to reach out to us and, offer his time to come on to Eagles Power Hour. And so we have an awesome episode. We hit on a ton of different topics, kind of Jeff McDaniels' story and how we ended up at Eastern Washington. We hit on a lot of recruiting things, kind of hit on the receiver room, and then a few fun questions here and there. But it was a blast talking with Jeff. Again, huge shout out and thank you for coming on to the show, Jeff. If you're listening back to this, all of his information will be tagged down below in the description on both Spotify and on YouTube. But thank you guys so much for listening and clicking on this one. Huge thank you to Jeff McDaniels for coming on. And here is the interview with Jeff. All right, and here we have a very special guest, wide receivers coach from Eastern Washington, Jeff McDaniels. Jeff, how are you doing this?
I'm good.
Tonight.
Yeah, no, I'm good. We just it all blends in, but I'm doing good. We just got out of a receiver meeting and excited. We're kind of counting the days down until we get started in the spring with practice. But so it's been a good Wednesday.
That's awesome to hear. So we're gonna mostly talk about like the team and all that, but we want to get into your background a little bit too. You got to Eastern in 2023, but we're gonna throw it all the way back. We'll start playing career, and then we want to hear like, hey, what were your stops along the way to get to Eastern Washington? What was your path to the Eastern Washington receivers job?
Yeah, so I've got a little bit of a longer story maybe than some. Was a military family moving all over the place, so the moving hasn't really stopped since I've gotten into coaching. But coming out of high school, I was not a highly recruited guy. Was not wasn't Efton Chisholm, Kendrick Bourne, or anything like that, and had a couple smaller FCS offers, primarily kind of on the East Coast. And this was right after Steph Curry had made about a year and a half after Steph Curry had made his run at Davidson. And so ended up playing 4 years as a receiver at Davidson College, just outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. Small college, 1,500 kids total in the school. Played receiver there, was behind some really talented wideouts. Not that I would have been able to kind of crack it the first couple of years when I was there, but played behind 2 All-Americans when I was there. But as I was playing, the playing part, knew I wasn't going to play in the NFL. Knew I just wasn't blessed in some of those kind of things. And so while all my buddies were getting ready to go try to make a bunch of money and kind of sit behind the computer and crunch numbers and do that sort of thing, I knew that wasn't going to be what I wanted to do. So my coaching career kind of started while I was a player. So every summer I would go and volunteer at summer recruiting camps. And I would go not affiliated with Davidson as a coach, but would just go help shag balls and go kind of help run the 40 and run all those kind of things. And I would sleep in my car in church parking lots. I'd get some hotels. I'd have to stay at some buddies' houses at a bunch of different schools. I mean, I was all over the state of North Carolina, down into Florida and Cincinnati, Ohio State. I was kind of all over the place. And my biggest thing was I just wanted to meet as many people as I could while I was playing. And I ended up playing a little bit my senior year and actually played for 2 coaches that kind of pushed me into the coaching route. One was Matt Mumme, the offensive coordinator now at Colorado State, whose dad is kind of the founder of the air raid. So I played for him, a little bit of an Eastern flair when I was there. And then my senior year, played for Mike LaFleur, the younger brother of Matt LaFleur, the head coach for the Packers. But so ironically now, Mike is the OC for Cooper Kupp with the LA Rams. And so played for 2 very different coordinators, but like just being around those 2 guys, like it was always infectious and they were so positive. And like, I was like, this is what I want to do. Like, I want to do this. And I was able to play for those 2 guys. And so my career started as an offensive quality control coach at Old Dominion University. So again, goes back to one of the every summer, I ended up working some of the camps in the Virginia area, and the quarterbacks coach and offensive coordinator at ODU at the time, Ron Whitcomb, he was looking for a guy when I was finishing up graduating, and so I was able to step into that room, and I think I hit the lottery my first year there because Taylor Heineke, the quarterback now for the Atlanta Falcons, he was there. He was a senior at ODU. He was coming off of a Walter Payton Award year. It was the first year that ODU was going from the FCS ranks to the FBS ranks in Conference USA. So kind of thrown to the fire, but getting to sit in a room with an NFL quarterback. And I didn't know, I played receiver, didn't know anything. And that's kind of where my coaching career started. So I was there for a year working with the quarterbacks and the receivers, and Zach Pascal, who is now playing for the Arizona Cardinals, who was an Indianapolis Colts, Philadelphia Eagles, played and lost the Super Bowl there 2 years ago. So I was blessed from the start, blessed to be around some talented guys from the start. And then from there, had the chance to go to Texas State University right outside of Austin, Texas. So I had graduated from high school down in Texas, loved having the chance to get back into the state of Texas, and coached under Dennis Francione my first year. And then Brad Bedell was the offensive line coach who helped me out later on. But so was in a really talented running back, tight end, receiver room, kind of bounced around, and was the assistant, was a graduate assistant for really all of those the first year. And then Coach Fran retires. And so Coach Withers comes from James Madison to Texas State, and was able to work for a really, really, really talented, really young staff there. Brett Elliott, Parker Fleming, who was most recently the special teams coordinator at Ohio State, was able to soak up a lot of their knowledge there. And then I get my 2 years as a graduate assistant. So freaking living in the office and working 18, 20 hours a day there. And then actually had the chance to get my first full-time FCS job, going back to my alma mater and actually flipping to the defensive side of the ball, which was like trying to walk in and learn calculus 2 and having never taken algebra before. So like having to backpedal, and I was the corners coach and recruiting coordinator there for 3 years. And again, went through kind of a coaching, was there with Paul Nichols, who I had played for my senior year. The first year season did not go super well. And then Scott Abel, who is still there now, retained me. I was one of two guys that was fortunate enough to get kept. And then we started to have a little bit of success the second and third year at Davidson. But that was great. I mean, that's like being around Zach Bruce and Mark Anderson and Coach Best here. And it means it's special being back at your alma mater, being back at your alma mater. And we did not win a lot of games when I was playing. We did not win a lot of games my first year coaching, but the second and third year was able to kind of get it going in the right direction. And I felt really good about that, and didn't think anything about leaving for a long time. Liked living in Charlotte, North Carolina. But I get a call basically this time of year from the offensive line coach at Boise State University, Brad Bedell, who I had worked for at Texas State. And he says, "Hey, we got an offensive line GA job. It's going to kind of work with a little bit of everybody. I know you're a skill guy, defensive guy, but he was like, I trust you, and hopefully you don't screw up a ton when you get out to Boise." And so I packed up the car, drove 37 hours from Charlotte to Boise. I get to Boise, Idaho. 6 days later, COVID starts. So that was my initial taste of the Pacific Northwest, was COVID. So kind of had to gain a appreciation for, like, I'm not an outdoors guy, but had to go do some things in Boise when everything was closed. But there I was surrounded by some guys that, like, I still lean on as mentors to this day. So Coach Harson's somebody that I loved working for, and he ended up getting me to the next place. But then Eric Keesaw, who's now a senior analyst at the University of Florida, Brad Bedell, Matt Miller, who's still the receivers coach at Boise, and then was on the staff when Spencer Danielson, now Boise State's head coach, was the D-line coach there, and Jeff Schmedding, who's now at Washington State. So, I mean, I walked into about as good of a learning environment as a young guy could ever ask for, whether it was offense, defense, special teams. Zach Alley, our special teams coordinator when I was there, was just named the special teams coordinator at Oklahoma. So I just tried to be a fly on the wall and just tried to absorb as much knowledge as I possibly could. And then on top of it, it's COVID. And so, but when I was there, Khalil Shakir, who was he's now playing for the Buffalo Bills, was a receiver that I got to work with when I was working under Matt Miller there, and Hank Bachmeyer. And there's a list of the list goes on and on of some guys at Boise that are starting to kind of have some really successful NFL careers. And so, long story short, I know that's a lot of stops, but so I fly home for winter vacation, get off the plane, and get a text that Coach Harsin had taken the Auburn University job, and then was very fortunate and blessed that Coach Harsin wanted to bring me down with Coach Keesaw and Coach Bedell to Auburn, and was there the past 2 years. And again, luck. So much of this job is luck and timing and all of these things. But I get down to Auburn, and Mike Bobo's the offensive coordinator, who's now the offensive coordinator at the University of Georgia. And it's Eric Keesaw, it's Cadillac Williams, it's Will Friend, who is now the offensive coordinator at Western Kentucky. And then on the defensive side of the ball, it's Derek Mason, who just recently got the Middle Tennessee head job. It's Schmedding, it's Zach Etheridge. It's the list of guys went on and on the first year, and then even with some of the staff change up after the first year, getting to learn receiver specific, like my last year at Auburn, from Ike Hilliard, who was an all-time great at the University of Florida, played in the NFL for a really long time, had a really great career there. And then ironically, it's kind of leads me to the Eastern part. While I'm at Auburn, there's a couple guys that had either played or coached at Eastern Washington. So Jeff Schmedding, who was with me at Boise, who was then at Auburn, was the defensive coordinator here at Eastern before going to Boise. J.C. Sherritt, who was an All-American linebacker here, was an analyst with me the second year at Auburn. Danny McDonald, who just recently got hired back here at Eastern, was a quality control coach here. And then last but not least was Bodie Reeder, who's now the offensive coordinator at Middle Tennessee. He was the offensive coordinator when Schmed was the DC here. So there's all these Eastern times, and I'm sitting there as an analyst for 2 years in a pretty good football conference, and got to learn a ton from people, and wasn't thinking about leaving, wasn't thinking about necessarily leaving. It had to be the right job for me, but when this job came open, and just through the grapevine, and I was so attracted to this job, whether I had some people that had worked here or not, like the receiver room at Eastern Washington, people know it coast to coast. And so when that job came open, I had Coach Reeder, Coach Schmedding. Everybody was probably hounding Coach Best to the point where he was probably like, okay, sure. Like, let's see. And went through the process here with Coach Chapin, and fired up to have now. This is literally, I'm sitting here 365 days after showing up at Eastern last year. So that's my long-winded answer, and the least you've probably talked in the first 10 minutes of one of these deals. But that was kind of my short playing career, and not super successful playing career. Played a little bit, like to tell the guys, 40 catches, team captain as a senior, didn't win a bunch of games, and then have been really blessed and fortunate to be around some really smart coaches, but then really great men throughout this process, and could not be more fired up to be here at Eastern.
Heck yeah. So, man, I forgot how many Eastern Auburn connections there were, especially on the defensive side of the ball.
It was unbelievable. So you like our second year, you walk around, and Schmed's calling the defense at Auburn. J.C. Sherritt had come from the CFL and from Cal Poly out there, and then Danny was there, and Danny McDonald is now our new special teams coordinator here. We were together at Boise. Then we were together at Auburn as well. So I've been with Danny for 3 years, Schmed for 3 years. And then Bodie Reeder sitting there, and literally not at the time, like it's crazy to think about, but like we're installing plays at Auburn, and it's throws to, some of these receivers, and it's red film. So it's a hodgepodge of red film. It's Boise blue film. It's Georgia stuff with Coach Bobo. But yeah, a lot of Eastern ties in the Auburn building for 2 years.
Yeah, so SEC football is one topic that I definitely wanted to ask you about. I got to ask, we're going to hit on obviously there's a lot of differences between Big Sky football and FCC football, but what were some of the things that were like very similar to where you like wouldn't expect it to be that similar between a Big Sky and an SEC school?
I think, and I'm a little fortunate to be leading a receiver room that has been a great room for a really long time. I think one of the similarities is how hard these guys work. It's not like the guys at a certain conference or at a certain level work harder than other guys. The other guys, whether it's the Big Sky or if it's other FBS conferences, they might just be 1 inch too short, or 10 pounds too light, or a step too slow, or whatever the case may be. But the work ethic, especially in this receiver room, and I had just come from that receiver room there, this group of receivers works harder, just as hard as the group at Auburn and some of the other groups that I've been around. And then the whole team, our guys eat, breathe, and sleep football here. And that was not something that I didn't expect, because I had heard about the culture and the brand of Eastern Washington through some of the connections that I had. But the fact that just because a guy's not getting a 6-figure NIL deal, his love for football is no less here. His work ethic here is no less. And again, we're spoiled in this room, but we've sent NFL receivers here just as much as a lot of schools that have a bigger stadium and setup and everything like that. But the work ethic, the drive, the love for the game, the attention to detail, just the all around grind of the Big Sky football, especially in this receiver room, especially in this offense and in this program, is something that is very similar to where I was coming from.
Yeah, that Eastern grind is something that so many former players talk about. Eastern does so much more with less than your average school. You got to be a different breed of guy to really, or a different breed of human to really succeed. I'm not saying that Eastern is this horrible school, but Eastern doesn't have the resources that, an Auburn has, or hell, even a Montana State has. And so hearing about the work ethic and all that stuff is always, it's great to hear. It reminds me of, hey, this is the Eastern culture, and kind of throwing it back and hitting on the Eastern culture. I'm going to hit you with the tough question. How do we get Eastern back to that 2010s level program? Because obviously the last couple of years have not been ideal. What's the path, and how do we get back to that level program that we know we can be?
I think it's the day-by-day process, which is going to be the really boring answer and not what you would maybe want to hear, but it's trying to win every day and stacking the days on from January to August. And that's something that our guys have done an unbelievable job of last offseason, and they have even continued to build it to this offseason. And then it's finding ways to win some of the 50-50 games. And so
Exactly.
we had a couple of those last year. We had some overtime games. We had some last-second games. We had some growing pains, and we were young in a lot of spots. We were young in a lot of important spots, and we return a lot of players as well. And we have continued to stack really, really good recruiting classes on top of one another. But no, it's understanding to win in Saturdays in the fall. It's going to take 9 o'clock on Saturday morning walkthroughs, and our guys do it, and they don't bat an eye, and they understand the process. They understand the grind. The older guys know when they were younger, all of the winning and the success that had been here not too long ago. And so there's a bad taste in the mouth of some of primarily the seniors, and then even some of the juniors. But it's just doing the little things over and over. It's doing the little things in the classroom, doing the little things in the community, doing the little things in the workouts to the conditioning. And then when we get into the spring and the summer and so on and so forth, and then finding ways to scratch and claw. It might have to win some ugly games at times, but I mean, you look back and we're 4 or 5 plays away from feeling a lot different right now than we do as a staff and as a team. And so we understand that, and we have to do a better job as a staff. And then the players are doing everything that they possibly can right now to give us the best chance of getting it back to where it's supposed to be. And we understand that as a staff. We understand there's an Eastern standard, and last year wasn't up to the standard. That's the only year that I can speak on, having only been here for a year. But the future is really, really bright because of the way our guys are handling this entire offseason process.
Heck yeah, that's awesome to hear. And like you said, like we're gonna have to scratch and claw. Speaking of those one possession games, this was a major point I hit on in like our season recap. There's like 5 or 6 of these games where we either won by a play or lost by a play. It was so close. And even looking at like the Portland State game was a couple possessions, but that's a game where like, hey, we left 10 points on the table. Like
Yeah.
so close, so close. And this team was so young in so many key areas. Like this is why I am very high on Eastern next year. Like just as a fan, as a guy that's looking at, hey, we're gonna project. We recently gave or put out our like super way too early projections, and I'm like, hey, 9-3 isn't off the table, 8-4 isn't off the table, and a lot of Big Sky fans don't understand and don't see that when they see an L next to Idaho State and Portland State and these teams that were not good in the Big Sky, but like Eastern is so close and they were so young and they bring back so much this year that I think a lot of Eastern fans that pay close attention are expecting, hey, we got a chance this year. We got a very fun, favorable schedule this year. 6 home games. I've been ringing a bell about this all year. Get to freaking Roos. But
Yeah.
and like you said with the recruiting classes have been awesome. And we've been breaking down the most recent one. I got an interesting question for you.
Mm-hmm.
From a coaching staff perspective, what does a recruiting process look like from the, hey, we're going to find a player all the way to when he signs? Like, I know it's a multi-year process. It's a lot in that, but what's the general kind of process of how you find these guys, how you recruit them, and then how you get them to eventually once they sign, kind of what's that
Yeah.
process?
Yeah. No, it's a long but fun process, and it continues to change, especially now with the transfer portal. Some of the timeline and things like that have changed even since and it's not like I'm an old coach, but since I even got into it, it's different. But it's almost really good now to have this conversation with you because we're sitting here in the middle of February. So the second signing day was the first Wednesday in February. And really, we had most of our class done in December, which I'll get to. But right when that 24 class was put to bed, it was starting to go through and start to kind of build a 2025 list. And we have already done some work on that. But basically what happens is each coach on the staff has an area of the state or the West Coast or the country that they're assigned to. And so what we do is we reach out to all the coaching staffs in whatever area that we have. And the high school coaching staffs do an unbelievable job giving us information, names, who to watch, GPAs, height, weight, 40, all those kind of things. So the high school staffs help us out there as we start to build a list and kind of accumulate names. And then we use a couple different recruiting services in websites to kind of help us maybe fill in some of the cracks or just make sure that we don't miss guys. But so basically from February to the summer, you're responsible for your area. And so you're focused on your area, and then at the same time you're starting to focus on your specific position. So as I'm kind of combing through my Washington area and some of my California area and stuff like that, I'll spend some time there. Then I'll also spend some time starting to develop a relationship with some of the best receivers on the West Coast in the 2025 class. And so we can see guys in January now. So most of our staff was on the road in January. So you started to see the last couple of guys in the 24 class, but then you start to hear about and learn and get a chance to meet some of the 2025 class. And then we'll do spring practice. We'll have a bunch of the top juniors. So they're currently juniors in high school. We'll have a lot of those guys on campus, their families on campus. And then in May and early June, we go back out on the road, go back to our areas, go watch kids. It might be working out. It might be playing baseball, track. Might just be able to bump into them at their high school or have conversations with their high school staff about them. And then we're trying to just gather data and start to develop relationships, because here at Eastern, we're not the school that's going to just jump in and offer a guy and not have a relationship with him. We're not going to offer the world. I'm not going to offer 55 receivers as we go. But so once we get into the summer, that's when we try to, again, attract the guys to try to come to our recruiting camps over the summer. We may go to some different recruiting camps and things like that around not just the state of Washington, but Idaho, Oregon, Nevada, Colorado, basically all the WUI states, all the West Coast states, all the way down into Arizona and Southern California. And that way, that sometimes is our first chance of ever seeing a guy in person. And so we love at Eastern to be able to see a guy work out. We want to see him work out, whether it's in the weight room, but we'd love to be able to get him to our camp or at least a camp that we can see him run around and compete. And then during this time, if we feel really good about a kid and we've done our research, we've talked to mom, dad, the kid a bunch, our coordinator has talked to him, Coach Best has talked to him, we've talked to the high school staff, and then heck, we normally try to talk to guidance counselors, assistant principals, teachers, somebody that doesn't want to just paint them in maybe the best light. Like we really want to get to know a kid so that we don't bring in the wrong kid. And that's where we may start to offer some scholarships in the spring. In the summer, you end up offering more guys because you're seeing them work out. And then as their senior year goes on, the board's always changing. So, a receiver might commit to a bigger school, or he wants to stay closer to home, or he wants to do whatever. And so the board it's like playing a big game of Tetris, and you're kind of moving some pieces around, and you're trying to, continue to develop a relationship with one guy while finding somebody that maybe had fell through the cracks early on in the process. And so you're evaluating guys throughout their senior year. Some guys may pop and explode. Other guys you've known about, and you're just trying to continue to have a better relationship with them and their families and their people close to them. And then you get into official visits. And so what an official visit is that means that we get to pay as a school. We get to pay for a kid and his family to come on campus for 1 or 2 nights and kind of show them the best of Cheney, the best of Spokane, and really try to make sure that they're around as our players as much as they can, so they feel a part of the family. They see what our culture is, and a lot of meetings and the big fancy photo shoots that you see people do, and everything like that. And then the first signing day is in the middle of December, and that's where now a lot of your recruiting class is going to be. You're going to know. I don't want to put a specific number on it, but 75 to 90% of your recruiting class, you're going to know by that, basically that third week of December, what's going on. And then you have the next 6 weeks until some of the guys that wanted to maybe be a little bit slower in the process. And so you continue to have those guys on campus in January. And then that first Wednesday in February is the second national signing day. And then mixed in with all that high school stuff is then all the junior college recruiting that typically happens more so like the end of football season into December and January. And then the transfer portal is a whole nother new deal. And that we feel really good about some of the transfers that are on our team and that we're still in communication with, because some junior college and transfer guys may not get here until this upcoming summer. They might graduate their school in May, or they might not be able to leave until May. So it never stops. I mean, it never stops. And it's a really fun part of it, but I love it because these are the guys that we're going to spend more time than we do with our own families or with these guys that we're going to have a chance to coach. And so just selling them on who we are. We're not a used car salesman in recruiting. Like we are trying to bring in the right guys into our family. But yeah, that recruiting process, and I don't know if there's other things that you could think of that you want to know specifically about, but yeah, the recruiting, it never stops, and things are never final until their name is signed on the piece of paper. Cause I had been around places where you roll into signing day and you didn't think you were going to have a shot at a guy. And then he's, at his high school with the 3 hats in front of him, and he puts one on and you're like, we just got a guy. Or you go to sleep thinking that you got a stud, and then you find out in front of everybody that he's going to the rival school. So it's a fun but wild process.
Man, yeah, that almost exact thing happened to Idaho this year. And I mean, the eastern part of me was kind of giggling, but it was like, wow, that sucks. But yeah, no, recruiting is so much fun to follow for me personally. I mean, I even put together a little Excel sheet with recruit names of Eastern just to give fans a better idea of like who Eastern's looking at and all that stuff. Okay, this is just a curiosity question. Do you guys just have like a big Excel sheet with a bunch of names on it? Like,
Oh, it looks like, I mean, yeah. So I think one of the biggest things you got to be a really good coach to be to most college coaches, but you got to be a savant on the computer. I mean, you
yeah,
have got to know my Excel spreadsheets, and yeah, I mean, it never stops. And there's Google Docs with the staff where we rank the offensive players. The area coach is going to have every person, whether he is never going to play at the JV level in high school to a 5-star recruit. Like, you've got to know about every kid in your area. You got to know every kid at your position up and down like the West Coast. The sheets are deep because you never know how things are going to unfold. You never know, especially at the FCS level. You never know how things are going to shake out. But one of the, I guess, unique parts is at Eastern, there's a little bit, there's a name and a reputation. So we tend to stay at top of the Excel sheets for the guys when we're ranking them and going through everything. But yeah, the Excel sheets are intense. Yeah.
okay. Um, we're gonna hit a little bit on the transfer portal. We don't have to go super super in depth on it, but I'm just curious what some of the pros and cons are when recruiting in this transfer portal era, because I know there's definitely the cons to it. Play sometimes. I mean, not necessarily always at Eastern Washington, but like if you have a player that has an awesome year, pretty good chance at the FCS level that he's going up. But what are some of the pros of the transfer portal that we've seen at the FCS level, and then hit on a few of the cons as well? I guess we could
Yeah,
go.
I think a pro is that, I guess it's almost two parts. One, if you have a need in your program, you have the ability to bring in somebody that's a little bit older, more experienced, more mature. That doesn't always mean that he's played a ton at the other school, but hey, if we needed a bunch of new receivers, well, we can't bring in 18-year-olds. And so we've got to kind of, now you can't have too many in the same class. And that's where some of the roster management is now, I mean, that's why you continue to see more colleges with these general managers or these directors of player personnel, because it's a moving roster for that. But so you get to try to fix some immediate needs with a little bit of maturity. And then you can also bring in guys with a chip on their shoulder. So, specifically if it's a Big Sky school, maybe it's a guy that was playing in the Pac-12, the Mountain West, maybe it was in the Sun Belt or something like that. And there's a guy that just wasn't getting a lot of playing time. He was the third string left guard at a Power 5 school or something like that. And now he's got a little chip on his shoulder. And then maybe you can bring in somebody that's talented, you think is talented, to be able to come in and compete at your program, and you kind of keep the competition level in a good spot. And so there's kind of those two parts. You could bring in somebody to maybe you just need depth at your position. And so you could bring in a 20-year-old, 21-year-old, 22-year-old, an older guy, and you're not asking him to solve the world's problems. You're asking him to be a backup slot receiver. And while we develop the young kids in the program, we have an older guy or something like that. Or you can get the guy that wants to potentially come down a level and potentially get more exposure, get the ball more, be able to have more tackles, or whatever the case may be. Those are some of the pros when it comes to that. I think you hit the con on the head. Especially at the FCS level, especially the Big Sky, which we feel pretty confident is the best conference at the FCS level. And so if you recruit and develop and do a good job, the guy could end up going to play to Pac-2 school, Pac-12 school, Mountain West school. And so there's that challenge of making sure that every single player in your position group has a role and you have a development plan for them. And then I think that you've got to have a really good relationship with them, because heck, Efton Chisholm is a great example of somebody who maybe had some schools sniffing around at him a little bit, and maybe could have been a good fit at some other schools, but he knew that there was a plan in place for him, and he knew the legacy that he could leave, not leaving. And I kind of always joke with him, having gone to the school where Steph Curry went. I said, "Hey man, Steph, ride or die, it's always going to be Golden State. So for you, like, do you want to be a guy that can go down amongst the great names here?" And he trusted Coach Best. He trusted Coach Chapin and myself that we were going to do everything we can for him to have the best career at Eastern, and then give him a chance to see what kind of shakes out at the next level. That's one specific example, but it is tough because if a guy has 100 catches, he could be gone by Christmas, and you're like, well, wait a second, like, I recruited you, I developed you, and so that's one of the cons. Or some of the younger guys looking for short-term satisfaction, and not. Maybe some guys, they go from being their star on their high school team, and now they're going to redshirt and then maybe sit for a year or two. And some other school is in their ear telling them the grass is greener somewhere else. So it's a little bit of give and take, but it makes it interesting. And as this transfer portal things, I kind of think the last like 2 or 3 years is when it's really started to go, and it's going to only continue to bring more trouble and positives, and it's going to be a moving deal as we go here in the coming years.
Oh yeah, transfer portal has been crazy. The saying that a lot of I mean, this is a nationwide saying or whatever, but the saying that we were hearing a ton. Obviously I'm an Idaho student, and with everyone that left the Idaho program, transfer portal taketh, transfer portal will giveth. And,
yeah. Yes, and there's some schools, and there's a couple that have some very prestigious head coaches that have talked very highly about going all transfer portal at every level, and some West Coast states. And at Eastern, we think that it is it's an added piece. It's not how we're going to build the program, because kind of the proof is put in the pudding here. It's recruit and develop the Cooper Kupps and the JC Sherritts and some of those kind of, it's to develop those guys and also show them that you can be an All-American here at Eastern. You can have a chance to go play in the NFL from here, and you can have a chance to play in the CFL or the XFL. But yeah, your roster, you can grab a bunch one year and look and maybe reap the short-term benefits, but then they could be all gone. And so that's why for us, it's an extra piece, but it's never going to be how we build the program moving forward, because we don't think that it's sustainable to just be bringing in transfers. Then you don't have a culture. You have a collection of a ton of individuals. And so you got to make sure you bring in the right guys, the right transfers. And so we are, maneuvering through some of the nuances of that as we go.
Definitely crazy climate right now in college football. Eastern's always been a recruit and develop school, and I think it always will be. You want to hit on, we brought in 6 receiver recruits in this signing class, a ton of them. Do you want to maybe give a quick little synopsis for each guy and kind of maybe a little story or something like that to just kind of hit on all these guys, because there's so many of them, so many different builds, so many different backgrounds, and very interesting, fun class to, I mean, if you guys have nothing to do on a random weeknight, go check out some of these dudes' film, because it is insane.
It's exciting. I am thrilled for the 2 guys that are here, and then the 4 that will be joining us this summer, because we lost a lot to graduation and different things. And so just walking around, like going into these position meetings, half the rooms, 9/10 of the rooms never played. There's 2 guys that have played a lot. And so there's a lot of new faces now. And then there's going to be 4 more in the summer. But I am like a kid on Christmas with all of these guys and the skill sets that they bring, because something that I believe in recruiting wise is that in the receiver room, we want to build it like a basketball team. And so I took and stole that from a couple of receiver coaches that I've worked for. And what that means is we can't have a lot of tiny guys, can't have a lot of the same builds, can't have a bunch of centers, can't have all 6'4" walking around. And so that's really what we try to do in this class, is bring in guys with really different skill sets so that they can kind of counterbalance each other as we put this together. But so the two guys that are here right now, Noah Cronquist, he's a 23-year-old guy. He's married, so he and his wife are living up here. He super long, kind of a long, crazy path to get to Eastern. He's from California, went to Southern Utah out of high school, went on a mission, came back to Southern Utah, then ended up going to Moore Park Junior College and had an unbelievable year this past year there. He was a super high productive guy. And as Nolan Olm told me today, he's probably now Noah might be the strongest receiver that we have in the room because he is all of 215 at about 5'10", 5'11". But he was a guy that had 1,200 receiving yards, over 1,000 yards in the return game, and a ton of catches, a ton of production. And like we talked about earlier, he's in his early 20s. He's not 18 years old. He's married. I mean, there's no worrying about him on a Friday night or a Saturday night or anything like that. And so that's some instant maturity. Loved having the chance to recruit him. And he's all business. He's all business. He's all ball. He's not the glitz and glamour and everything like that in the recruiting process. He wasn't about. I had to force him to do a photo shoot at the official visit because he was like, let's just go talk ball. Let's go watch Efton and Nolan and some of these guys on film. But so Noah's somebody that hopefully can learn and be around somebody like Efton. So Noah's got 2 years left. So he gets to learn from a guy like Efton, and then Noah's also got a skill set. He can play inside and outside, but we'll probably spend a decent amount of time inside for us. So that was one super experienced, super old when it comes to the football part. On the flip side, Jalen Garrison from Fresno City, he's the opposite. So he's played football for 3 years. So he was a basketball player. And his fun fact is he was born in Australia. So mom's from Australia, grew up in Las Vegas, and then got into football really late. And then ended up going the junior college route out of high school. He was playing football and was running track at the junior college level. So he is the opposite of Noah. He is raw in some terms, football-wise, just doesn't have a lot of playing experience. But a ceiling that's through the roof, and somebody that he was a 10-7 guy out of high school, which we'll have to put him up in some races with some of our guys, but he should be one of the faster guys that we have in the program, and somebody that we hope can help us take some shots and stretch defenses. And somebody who is just now scratching the surface of what playing receiver is, because you ask some of these other guys that have been playing football since they were 7, 8, 9, 10, at least freshman year of high school, and Jalen did it 1 year. And so he is all smiles all the time. And so those two guys were here starting the first week of January when we started our winter quarter. And so it's been great to have those guys around. They're in the weight room with Coach Groney. They're around Efton, Nolan, Miles, and these guys, and catching passes from Kakoa and Jared and Mike. And then it's the high school group. Then it's the 4 high school kids. So the 2 that signed in December, Jackson Branch is a guy that actually played with Kentrell, who's one of our safeties, is from Chandler, Arizona, from Chandler High School. And so that's one of the best high schools, not just in the state, not just on the West Coast, but in the country, and spent a lot of time this year ranked in the top 25 in America. But he is a big, long, 6'3" hooper that's going to be able to give us a red zone presence and give us a bigger body, give us a long, big body. Reminds me of some of the Miles Williams type, at least is the best example of somebody that I've been around for a year, but big, long, super athletic, really versatile, can play inside and outside, but a guy that is used to winning, is used to doing things at a high level at Chandler. And we hope that he is another Chandler guy that's able to come here and have a good career. And then on the flip side, he was kind of the perfect partner with Aiden Gutierrez at Adamian High School just outside of Los Angeles. Aiden is a touch the ball. It's a touchdown all over the place. I mean, it is, it's like 2.5 minutes until he catches a pass where he gets tackled. And so he's somebody that we hope will fill in for, let's just get the ball in this dude's hands, and then let's let him go do what what he does. And so we're going to be able to use him in the screen game, take shots again, but then also will be a big asset in the return game as a big-time punt and kick returner. And he's running indoor track right now down in California and is lighting it up and is texting me for playbook stuff every day and everything like that. But so he was the perfect complement with Jackson. Those two are going to complement each other extremely well. And then the signing day in February, the second signing day in February, had a little local taste. So Bodie Gardner, dad played here, and he is a basketball, track, and football guy. So the appealing part for somebody like Bodie is that what's going to happen when he's not hooping and running track all the time. And so kind of that high ceiling for him. He's a guy that is going to end up running this spring, probably one of the better 400 times in the state and in the Pacific Northwest, and had some track opportunities at some other schools. And he wanted to play football and he wanted to stay here. And the one little thing with Bodie was, this was probably about a week or two before he signed. So Coach Bruce, our safeties coach, who's from the Spokane area, we go watch a basketball game. And Bodie texts us and says, hey, make sure that you're there pregame because I'm going to put on a dunk contest. And I'm like, okay, I've seen him work out in the summer. And we got there and he put on a show. I mean, he put on a show above the rim pregame, threw one down in the game, and is a pretty darn good hooper. And so that's really exciting because there's a guy that's a multi-sport guy, something that we try to look for in the room, and continuing on some legacy. He's an Eastern legacy guy. So wanted to keep him here. And then Aiden Nicholson at a Mountain View in Vancouver, Washington. He is a big, long guy that he might be the most physical receiver that we brought in the class. And I say that because he was playing tight end. He was playing outside linebacker, strong safety. He was lining up, hand in the ground, playing tight end. Somebody that is a basketball player as well, and sky is through the roof there. So we took a lot of multi-sport guys that we're hoping their best football is on the red because they're going to be able to spend a lot more time playing football. But so, yeah, it's 6 new receivers and then maybe still 1 or 2 out there that we're working on putting the final touches on over the summer. So that first day of August practice is going to be crazy because, yeah, there's only 2 guys in the room that have played a lot, one that's played a little bit. But so we're really, really excited about this class. And they are the right kind of people, that competitive edge. You can't bring in people that don't want to compete when Efton Chisholm and Nolan Ulmer in the room. So they needed to be the right makeup and mentality. And we think that all 6 of them bring that and then bring different skill sets to the table.
Heck yeah. Man, it is a loaded receivers class, and talk about having some awesome role models and Nolan Ulmer and Efton Chisholm.
You couldn't picture a better, bigger body receiver and then arguably the best slot receiver in America to learn from. And that was a big recruiting pitch in this process was come be a sponge to 2 of the better guys that have played the position. And, Efton, if he has the year that we think he can have, is going to go down amongst the big names here. And so it's a lot of new faces, but they don't have to come in and answer all the questions and solve all the problems. But they get to learn from 2 super experienced guys. It's the 2 guys that help run all of our offseason stuff as an offense. And so, it makes my life a little bit easier because I've got 2 assistant coaches that just so happen to be pretty good at catching the ball as well in the room.
Yeah, Nolan he's such an awesome piece to have in that room with doing all of his make it happen camp and all that type of stuff. Such an awesome dude, hard worker. Like
he is wired like no other. Like,
yeah,
Efton's a little bit quieter at times, and he'll bark at you when he has to. But Nolan is the vocal leader in the room, on the offense, on the team, and there's no days off. Like if it's a Saturday and I think that I'm going to kind of have a relaxing day, like with Nolan, it is go all the time, which I love and appreciate. And he has grown on me so much. And I am blessed to be able to coach him because he's like the heartbeat of the team. And so I'm, again, very fortunate and spoiled to have the 2 of the bigger leaders on our team happen to both play receiver. That doesn't happen much. You don't normally have 2 guys like that. So it's a credit to them.
Yeah,
That is those guys. They work their tail off.
man. Talk about Afton. That dude's already up there. He's right behind. He's not well. Right behind is a stretch, but he's
He
up there with Coop. Like
he
he's
is. He is, and he has had an unbelievable year. And I'm hoping that he takes another big step where he did from his sophomore year to last year. He's going to have the same quarterbacks throwing him the ball now again going into this year, and he is a guy that the sky is the limit for him. The sky's the limit. He he prepares like a professional. So like if you're looking at his notebook week 8 against somebody, he's going to have more notes in there than a guy that's sometimes never played before. I mean, it's every little thing. I mean, he can be pushed. He allows me to push him, which makes coaching him such a blast because he doesn't have an ego, but his name's up there with some of the guys that have done it at a high level here and are playing on Sunday. So the two of them are really special to have and to have in the room. And with all these new faces, we would not have been able to bring in this many new faces had we not had those two to lead things. I truly think that we were able to do in recruiting what we did because of having the senior leadership of those two.
heck yeah, man. Awesome. Just talk about an EKG. Those guys, they are the EKGs on this team. This is more of a specific question. Is there any guys in the receiver room that we maybe haven't seen on the field a ton that you might expect to have a big breakout type season next year?
Yeah, the two that come to mind. So you texted me a name before we got on this, and I'm not bringing up his name because you texted it to me. But Miles Williams is a guy that just unfortunately he had some freak injuries last year. He had some just different freak injuries that he prepares as much as anybody. He's in there with Nolan and Efton all the time in the offseason and doing everything. And his he does everything he can for his body. And then just a couple freak injuries, but he is a guy that I was so excited about going into the year because he had maybe the best spring that anybody had last year when I got here. And the way he's moving and running around now, like I am super, super excited for what he's able to do. He does a little bit of everything. He can play inside, can play outside, can take the top off, is really physical. And again, sometimes it's easy to say, but when you surround yourself with good people, then good things happen. And he is with Nolan, inseparable with Nolan. And then it's no wonder why he's ready to go when his number is called. And then another guy that is working his way through some injuries, but Wes Garrett is another guy that I'm really hoping can have a really good spring into a really good summer. And then he's going to be a guy that's going to be able to help us in the special teams realm as well. I mean, he is a little heat-seeking missile that he is like the one guy that maybe I have to tell, don't start fights in practice or don't do. He's the one guy we have to reel in at times because of his energy. And he's the quietest guy in the room, but he might be the nastiest guy in the room. And so Wes is somebody that I think will be able to showcase his receiver ability, but then also for Coach McDonald, we'll be able to do some things in the special teams, whether it's returning or as a gunner on the punt team, kickoff return. Those are the two names that I'm hoping for. And then heck, it's like I'm saying the whole room, but JT Weir and Marcellus Honeycutt were the two freshmen that were redshirted last year, and they both bring super unique skill sets to the room and are two extremely athletic guys. And I could go on and the list goes on and on in the room, but those are just a couple names off the top that we have to have more than just number 7 and 17 making plays on Saturday this fall.
Oh yeah, man. The Eastern receiving room is always going to be loaded. It always has been loaded. That is most of the. Oh, I guess I should say this. There was. So I'm younger and I've been paying super close attention to Eastern. Like I've always been an Eastern fan. I always rooted my butt off for Eastern, but I haven't like paid super close attention to Eastern recruiting until the last 4-ish years or 5. Mm-hmm. I guess 5 or 5 years. There is 2 players that I've watched their tape and then went straight to Twitter and said, this guy is really good at football. Efton Chisholm and Miles Williams. Those are
Yeah.
those two guys. And so that's why I was saying Miles Williams to you before we before we got on here. Like I am so
No,
excited for him.
it's such a great combination because you have two seniors, and just as I'm starting to when I have conversations, goes back to some of those recruiting things going into their senior year. Even Nolan and Efton are sitting at like 310 catches, 3,500 yards, and 35 touchdowns, and then Miles, hopefully, knock on wood, is able to stay healthy for a really, really long time. And the list goes on and on. But yeah, I mean, Efton's highlight film's pretty good. We don't like to pat him on the back too much, and he gets enough of that one. But Miles is somebody that we're extremely high on as well.
I'm so excited. And Miles, young guy. Another thing,
Yeah.
the guys throwing them the ball are all going to be a year more experienced. Kikoa, he was so close. He was one of the best quarterbacks in the league last year statistically, and there was so many plays where he was like just overthrowing guys and
that was his first. That's the offensively. That's where we are the most excited because we thought we had you ask us how we think we did, maybe a B minus season offensively, and then you look up and statistically, we had some success in some certain areas, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter unless we end up scoring more points than some other guys. But the growth in that quarterback room from this time when I got here last year, when Kikoa had not gone through a season as the starter, when Jared Taylor and Michael Wortham were just getting here, we have a extremely deep quarterback room with very unique skill sets as well. And Kikoa is the leading passer to come back in the Big Sky. So we're really excited because the amount of reps that the receivers, the running backs, the tight end, all the time that we get with those guys, and then with all the experience that all three of those guys got in very different ways, especially when you talk about Mike and, in some of those deals, that's an area where we feel super, super excited as an offense is because of that room, because you can have the best offensive line in the world. You can have the best receivers in the world. But unless you've got some talented quarterbacks, it's going to make life really, really tough. And we love those three to death, and even the young guys that are there and are coming in behind them. But those three guys, they work their tail off, they grind, they do everything we ask them. That's one of the reasons why we are fired up offensively going into this year.
Oh yeah, I'm so excited to see Mike Wortham step into potentially even a bigger role next year. And this dude was a backup quarterback, and he was third in the nation in kick return yards behind, I believe he was behind Jermaine Jackson, and I think he was behind Bergen, who are two of the most national elite guys ever. Didn't hear crap about Mike Wortham in the national media.
Yeah, he's a guy, man. It's nice and fun when we get up on the whiteboard and it's like, well, what if we're going to have two quarterbacks on the field sometimes. Mike's going to play quarterback sometimes. He's going to be the kick returner. He's going to be we're going to give him some handoffs. And he is as contagious of a positive personality as we might have in the program. I mean, it is all smiles no matter what. He's been through he's been through the grind. He's a junior college guy that's here, and he's so appreciative of being here. And we absolutely love just what he brings to the table. It's how many times can a quarterback room say we've got somebody like Mike, we've got somebody like Jared Taylor who helped us win some games and put us in some really, really good offensive positions, and then we've got Kikoa as well. So we're in a good spot in that room. We're excited about that room.
So many playmakers, man. Okay, so kind of wrapping it up here. We are about an hour. We got a few slightly less football-ish questions for you before we wrap this thing up. So I know you're a coach. You got it's rare you have an off day, but what have been your favorite things to do in the Cheney/Spokane area on your rare off days?
I think, and I swear this isn't like a recruiting pitch, but the fact that Cheney's 20 minutes from downtown Spokane and about 30 minutes from Coeur d'Alene, just after signing day, we ended up having a little bit of time off, and I was able to go spend some time in a cabin out in the woods, and then in the summer, an off day, if I could go sit at Lake Coeur d'Alene, for most of the day, that'd be great. Just to get away from everything. Love spending time bowling with the guys. at Cheney Lanes here, and Cheney has been a big deal. And then just walking around kind of the waterfall area and some of the downtown area in Spokane, we didn't have that where I was coming from. So it was 2 years of Auburn, Alabama is not a huge city by any means. And so like a wild day would be like if you ended up at Chili's, after a win or something like that. And so I enjoy being, I live in Spokane. And so I kind of like that you get all three pieces. There's a bunch to do here in Cheney, especially with the guys. There's a lot to do in Spokane, and then with Lake Coeur d'Alene being right there. And I still need to learn how to ski. I tried ice skating over in December. That wasn't pretty. I've always been a water guy, just being from the South and some of those things. So I got to learn how to handle some of the snow up here and do some things with the snow. But yeah, that would be some of the things to try to get away from ball on the very limited time we've got and go get out in the woods or go hike or go stand up paddleboard or something like that on the lake.
Man, some of those playoff games here in the hopefully near future are going to be tough.
Yeah, and Zach Bruce, our safeties coach who played here, he tells me, and Coach Anderson, he
was playing for two of the coldest games I've ever been at ever in 2016.
And coming from the South, I was the guy when it was like 50 degrees. I was in like double sweats. And so Coach Bruce is definitely one of the first guys that's like, hey, man, if we're going to keep playing into, November and stuff like that, we're going to have to, get you used to some of the cold. So I'm adjusting to that one. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Next non-football question here. What's your favorite food spot in the local area?
Arturo's Mexican here in Cheney is my spot. Farmhouse is also a really good sit down. Like if the family's in town for a game or something like that, Farmhouse in Cheney. And then in Spokane, oh man, Wooden City and Steam Plant. So it's two that, again, if the coaches are going to go out for dinner together or something like that, hopefully we end up at one of those two spots. And if the family's in town, and that's one that we like to bring the recruits to as well, because kind of overlooks some of downtown Spokane or the water. But that was something that kind of surprised me. I didn't know anything about the Washington cuisine and what the setup would be like and stuff like that. But it's been good. There's some good. I like the local spots and the local flavor here in Cheney, and then I like some of the different spots down there in Spokane as well.
Man, it's always so. Being an Idaho guy, people like the rat on Cheney just because it's small all the time, and I'm like, there's not a better location anywhere. You're so close to so many things. There's so much good food. There's so many good things to do. You have Coeur d'Alene right there. Cabela's, anyways.
Yep.
And then this is our final question to kind of wrap this thing up. What's been your favorite part about the community at Eastern and Cheney so far since you got the Eastern in 2023?
Oh, man. I think it would be the community puts their arms around each other. So whether it's like football recruiting stuff, like if we ever need a professor to meet with somebody, or we ever want to try to get a building open to show, whether it's a recruit, whether it's our own families, whatever, like everybody is so nice and appreciative of one another. And I thought that's in some of the ways it reminds me of some of like Southern hospitality, being up here, and the people are nice. And then just everybody wants Eastern to do well, and they want to try to contribute in any way that they can. So when I've had the chance to talk with some, whether it's boosters that went to school here, whether it's alumni, whether it's people that are alumni that didn't play football, but they're season ticket holders or whatever, like they want to know about Eastern. They want to know how they can help. They want to help out. They want to do whatever, share wisdom and knowledge with somebody like me that just got here. That's kind of been the coolest part is this community. And I had heard it kind of going in to taking this job was, hey man, it's a bigger deal than just the football program. It is the Eastern way. It's the EWU stuff all over Cheney and Spokane. And I've been blown away by how big of a part that football plays here in this area, and how everybody just wants to see Eastern do well. and to get back to the days that we've done, and hopefully there's not a much longer of a wait. But no, just how open and appreciative everybody is, and how helpful everybody is, and that's one of the coolest things when we go do our community service and we go do some of these different things. Is the little kids, they want to be the football players. They see the red, they want to be on the red. They want to run around when we have some of the youth days on Ruse. Like they want those things. So that's been really, really cool. Is the family feel, even though you're right outside of a metropolitan area of 300,000 people, is just how everybody's nice. There's no egos. There's no it's true Southern hospitality, which I am a big fan of, to be up here and to be around.
Heck yeah, that's awesome to hear, and I think that wraps it up pretty well. Is there anything, one, that you want to like kind of promote, I guess, and two, where can the people find you on social media and all that stuff?
Yeah, I would just tell people, I think that our SID, our sports information department, does an unbelievable job here getting the content out for the guys. So whether it's the Eastern Washington on Twitter, EWU Football there, same on Instagram, and we are going to try to promote our guys as much as we possibly can. We want people to know who our players are outside of just football players, and so our people do an unbelievable job of promoting that to the recruits and everybody out there to follow the staff and to follow the recruiting Twitter page and to follow the coaches in your area. And then my Twitter is at Coach J McDaniels as well on there for everybody. But no, I appreciate it. I appreciate you letting me have a chance to get on here and talk with you. And you guys have done an unbelievable job. So it's an honor to get on here and talk a little bit about the receivers and Eastern and just kind of, heck, even learning from you a little bit before we hopped on here about some of the stuff. So I appreciate it. And if people have, more restaurant spots, I need to learn more of the spots. I need to learn more of the spots to go to on the rare off days in the off season and stuff like that. But no, I appreciate your time.
Oh, I appreciate your time, man. Thank you so much for coming on. Everyone, go check out Coach Jeff McDaniels on Twitter. He's always a good follow for Eastern fans. Lots of content and stuff coming through his accounts. But I think that's all we got today, guys. Again, Jeff, thank you so much for coming on. And go Eags, everyone.
Go Eags.